Welcome back. Our guest on the programme today is Clifford May, who's described as one of the 100 most influential conservatives in the United States.
There's only 101 of us left, though. That's the problem.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because it wasn't a good election for the Republican Party, was it?
It's dreadful. It was a blowout for the Republican Party, and I would say the Republican Party is very weak and in disrepair, and it's going to take a lot of time for it to get back into good health.
How do you think President Obama's doing?
I think he is somebody who was brilliant at becoming president, and is showing that he is not quite so brilliant at being president. It's interesting. Here's somebody who became president not because he was the very successful governor of Illinois and changed the lives of his people. He was never governor. Not because he built some great business up, and he obviously has managerial. He never had a business. He was not a distinguished legislator whose name is on bills that changed America. None of that. He got where he is. He became president of the United States. No mean achievement. On the force of his charm and personality. Give him that. Now he is using the force of his charm and personality around the world. And guess what? He goes to Europe and people like him a lot. And when he says, I need more troops to help in Afghanistan, they say, we'll get back to you on that. And he goes into the Middle East and he speaks to the Muslim world in very flattering terms, and then he beats a little bit on Israel's head and says, now, the Saudis, I need your help to make peace with Israel. And they say, we'll get back to you on that. And his personality, which got him votes, is not getting him anything tangible that I can see. And even domestically, he said, okay, my number one priority right now is health care reform. We're going to change the system from top to bottom. So if you look at the polls right now, there's a majority, a plurality, maybe even a majority of Americans who at this point say, my fear is this is going to make my health care worse, not better, and it's going to cost more, not less. That's not necessarily a crazy thing to think. And again, the Democrats won, Republicans have lost, but on this issue, right now it looks like the Republican skepticism is sort of winning the day. So I think had he done it in a slow, careful way, rather than say, hey, you love me, you trust me, don't worry about it, this is going to be fine, it would have been more successful. I hope he will learn from this. I hope that he will learn from his mistakes on health care, on the Middle East, where he's made the Palestinians more hardline, more intransigent than they were, not less so, by saying, I'm going to deliver Israeli concessions and ask nothing of you in return. I would hope he would say, okay, this is not working out so great. So now what do? That's the sign of a really good executive and a really good manager. I've got a problem. I haven't solved it. What else can I do? And it's too early to tell whether he learns or whether he repeats.
This was a very interesting point. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, has apparently pulled back from Jewish settlements on the West Bank. Well, I say apparently because I know that was one of the planks of his campaign was that they wouldn't pull back from that. So, what's actually going on there?
Look, the best of my knowledge, I'm not a deep expert, they have not been expanding settlements in the West Bank, but those settlements that are already there may grow. The Israelis occupied two lands, Gaza and the West Bank. They occupied those as a result of a war fought to defend themselves from all their Arab neighbors who sought the annihilation of the country. And they ended up taking Gaza, which had been administered by Egypt, and the West Bank administered by Jordan. Neither Jordan nor Egypt want them back. And they said, you want to make this into a Palestinian Arab state? Fine, we'll do that, but we have to have peace in exchange. If the idea is that the conflict was about the occupation of these territories, when Israel, just a few years ago, I was there for this, left Gaza, pulled out every soldier, every settler, and by the way, every body from the cemetery, because even dead Jews would be offensive to Palestinians. That should have, the result of that should have been that the Palestinians said, okay, we got half what we want, let's negotiate over the borders in the West Bank, and by the way, here in Gaza, let's build schools and factories and hospitals and maybe some beach resorts. None of that happened. They said, okay, we've got Gaza, let's set it up as a base to send rockets and missiles into Israeli villages. So what Netanyahu is saying is, I've got a different approach. It's not Obama's approach. He hasn't sold him on it. He has said, I am going to help with economic development in the West Bank. I think Palestinians need more to lose, frankly. And economic growth in the West Bank could be 7% this year, which is fantastic by any standard. Keep in mind that before 1993, the West Bank was very healthy economically, very prosperous compared to the rest of the Middle East. What happened in 1993? The Israelis made a huge mistake and brought Yasser Arafat from exile to the West Bank and put him in charge. The economy collapsed after that.
You're a veteran journalist, broadcaster. You were on the board of governors for the Broadcasting Board of Governors.
I wasn't. I'll tell you, I was nominated for that by President Bush.
Okay.
And I've never said that. I was renominated by the Republican minority leader, and the Obama White House blackballed me on it.
So,
I'm sorry they did, because I would have, because the Broadcasting Board of Governors works in the interest of the United States as a whole, and I would have supported this White House as strongly as the last White House. I would have been totally bipartisan in that. And I think it's a bad sign that they thought, no, Cliff has been too critical of Obama. I've never been critical of him on a personal basis, only policies. I think they should be reaching out to people like me. But they didn't.
They're the people in charge of the Voice of America, which
Voice of America, yeah, that's right, and Radio Free Europe, and Radio Liberty, and Radio Farda, and all the broadcasting that the U.S. does abroad, all of which, much of which, I don't know your opinion, I think needs some work.
There's no obvious leader of the Republicans going into the next election.
Not at all.
Would you stand?
No. And they wouldn't have me.
I just think you make it
very nice of you to say that,
president.
but very nice to say that. No, I think that's part of the problem. Is the party is leaderless and sort of without direction, and the factions within are sort of struggling among themselves. And so I see a very challenging period. If I had to predict, and I shouldn't predict because what do I know, unless Obama really screws up royally, he should get 2 terms. And I don't see the Republicans taking back Congress anytime soon. With that in mind, I think the Republicans need to be realistic and focus less on politics and more on policy. Get the policy right. Think of the problems that really, really trouble Americans. Come up with creative solutions to those. Offer them. Even if they're rejected, at least people will know you're working for them. Regain trust, and maybe over time you can come back. Maybe, if not in 4 years, in 8 years, there'll be somebody, maybe somebody who we haven't heard of at this point. 4-8 years ago, very few people thought Obama was going to be president of the United States. So maybe the next Republican president is somebody you and I would never think of. Don't know.
It's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank
Great.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.